Are you disappointed about the healing and transformation that's happening in your life? Is it happening too slowly, or do you feel like you've just bumped into walls so you're not moving forward? Now, your subconscious mind might be one of the culprits that's holding you back. But today we're going to talk about that a little differently. Most of the time, when we're looking at the subconscious mind and how it gets in our way, we're looking at resistance, we're looking at self-sabotage, we're looking at the ways that it keeps us stuck to keep us safe. But that's not always the case. There's actually another way in which the subconscious mind can get in the way of our transformation, and it has everything to do with the way the subconscious mind learns and absorbs new information. Today, as we continue our series on healing and transformational fundamentals, we're going to be looking at how the new normal becomes the normal, and that gets in the way of healing and transformation at the subconscious level. This is Monterastelli, and welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast recorded live to tape from Williamsburg in Brooklyn. This is episode 571, originally aired August 9th, 2023. Hi, everyone. I hope this finds you well wherever you are and whatever time of day you're getting a chance to join me. Today, we are continuing our series on the healing and transformational fundamentals. These are concepts that underline every single part of the healing process. And when we understand them, it makes it so much easier for us to create transformation because we know how the transformation process works. Now, as we step into this today, and as we talk about the subconscious mind, one of the things that is paramount in creating change inside of the subconscious mind is working in a way that works with the subconscious mind. We can't just simply think our way into change. We have to do something else to be able to create change at the subconscious level. For myself, the tool that I love to use is tapping. I use it for myself. I use it with my clients. It is a super powerful tool in helping us to create change at the subconscious level. If you are new to tapping, all you need to do is follow that little red arrow in the upper right-hand corner. That is going to take you to learn2tap.com, and there it's going to teach you all of the basics. So as we work our way through this series and every single video on this channel, you're going to understand the basics of tapping so you can get even more out of each one of these conversations. As we unpack the fundamental that the new normal becomes the normal and this gets in the way of our transformation, there's two components to this particular thing. The first is, what do I mean by the new normal becomes the normal? And the second is, how does it impact the way that we have transformation? So when we're looking at the new normal becoming the normal, what I'm saying is that our subconscious mind does a very, very bad job in understanding time. And we've talked about this multiple times before in these conversations, that to the subconscious mind, there is the past, which is every moment that happened before right now as a singular moment. There is the future. Every moment in the future is a singular moment, and right now. And for the subconscious mind, the only thing that is important is right now, because the subconscious mind was developed and built as a safety mechanism, and safety is about this moment and what is happening around me and how I can position myself in this moment to be safe. And so what that means is the subconscious mind takes our current understanding and it assumes it is the long-standing understanding of the way it has always been. You know, we talked about this a little bit in a previous episode where we talked about the idea that operative reality is reality. Whatever the subconscious mind believes is true, it acts as if it is true. Well, the same thing happens as we are learning through the world. And I have two simple examples for you to kind of demonstrate the way the subconscious mind works. So example number one. So I have right here an iPhone, and it's one of the more modern iPhones where you look at it and it has Face ID and it unlocks itself. Now, I am a former computer scientist. I love technology. And so when new technology comes out, I buy the new technology right away. And so when the iPhone was transitioning from the little thumb touch idea where it was using a fingerprint to unlock to just using your face. When that new phone came out, I had that new phone. Well, 1 week later, after getting that new phone, I was at a national conference with young people from all over the country, and I was one of the speakers, and I was part of a showcase one evening, and a buddy of mine was getting on stage to do a presentation in front of about 8,000 high school students. And because it was such a cool venue and it was a great moment, Chris handed me his phone and he said, "Could you take my phone and just from the side of the stage, can you record me doing this so I can send it to my family?" And of course, I decided to do it. And so Chris handed me his iPhone, which was a previous generation iPhone, which was the make and model and shape of the phone that I owned 1 week earlier. And when I looked at the phone, it took me a full 60 seconds to unlock the phone and to get in to do a video recording. And again, this is a phone I owned 1 week earlier. But because I had become accustomed to the new phone and how the new phone worked, the mind just deleted the old information out. It was no longer necessary. And so the new normal is what was already normal. And I couldn't remember what was there. Second example. I can remember as a 15-year-old learning how to drive. Both of the cars my parents had at that point were standard transmissions. And so it was a little more complicated learning how to drive on a stick shift, going from nothing to being able to do that. And as I think back to that time in my life, when I think back to being 15, I have lots and lots of memories of going out with my mother and going out with my father and practicing learning how to drive. And I can remember stalling the car out, and I can remember people honking at me because I've done that. And I can remember not being able to do that very, very well. And I now know how to drive a car. I know how to drive a car so much that I can drive a car, change the radio, eat a sandwich, have a conversation with someone in the car, and be completely safe and be completely present to what is going on. So I know how to drive a car. I can remember learning how to drive a car. And if I put myself back into my 13-year-old body, before I knew how to drive, before I'd ever sat behind the wheel of a car, and you put me in the seat of that car, even though I can remember I learned how to drive 2 years later, I can't remember what it is like not to know how to drive. So if I were to imagine my 13-year-old self sitting behind a car or behind the wheel of the car, I wouldn't feel uncomfortable. I wouldn't feel overwhelmed. I wouldn't feel scared because the new normal, which is me knowing how to drive the car, has become the normal, and I can't remember outside of that. So those are two very simple, trivial, at least trivial feeling examples of how the new normal becomes the normal. And I'm sure if you think back in your life and think to different things that you've experienced, you might be in a circumstance where you might be able to remember and recreate some similar type ideas. But with that being said, how and why then does this get in the way of transformation? Well, there are a number of ways that this can get in the way. The first way that we can do this is we can forget how far we have come inside of our transformation. And what that means is that because I am healed and I am transformed, but if the new normal becomes the normal, I can't remember pre-transformation. And the most stark example of this that I ever saw is I had a client of mine who called himself a liar. And he didn't just flat out call himself a liar, but what had happened was we'd worked over the course of a number of sessions, and it was session 5 or 6 or 7. So we'd spent a great deal of time together. And in the middle of the conversation, he was like, Gene, I'm really enjoying the process. I enjoy our time together, but I don't know if I'm actually making any progress. And I said, oh my gosh, thank you for sharing that with me. That is a great piece of information. Let's take a look at your intake form. Now, the intake form that I use with my clients is not them reporting to me and I'm writing information down as part of an intake process. This was his words that he had typed into a Google document that he had shared with me. And I pulled it up on the screen because we were on Zoom, and I started reading it back to him. And his response was, I was just exaggerating. It was never that bad. So he was in a circumstance where, even though he didn't say it, he was calling himself a liar because the new normal had become the normal so much, he had forgotten how far he had come. The second way, and this is very, very similar, is we get into a circumstance where we forget the fact that we're learning along the way, which means that when we face something hard, we're afraid we can't learn something. But the reality is, at some point in your life, someone had to teach you in a Word document program how to create italics, how to underline, how to do bold, how to create a bullet list. And now I am guessing if you are sitting in a work document or you're in an email program, you can do those things super, super easily, and you don't remember learning them. And because we forget the fact that we are learning, when we are facing new challenges, we're afraid that we can't learn because it's too hard, because I don't know how to do it. And part of that is because we've forgotten how far we've come. One of my favorite phrases to tap on with my clients is, every single thing I can do, with the exception of breathing, is something I had to learn along the way. And so when the new normal becomes the normal, we forget that we are capable of learning. Now, when we take those two things and we add them up, when we feel like we are not making progress and we feel like it's impossible for us to learn because we've forgotten the progress, we've forgotten that we're learning, then this becomes a real sense of demotivation, because it feels like everything is staying the same and no matter how hard I try, I am not moving forward. And this is because once we heal and transform something, it just becomes a part of us. And therefore, because it just becomes a part of us, and we've forgotten how far we've come, and we've forgotten what we've learned, then the only thing that we remember is the struggle that is in front of us. And if the only thing that you remember is the struggle in front of us, at a certain period of time, that is going to cease our motivation. It's going to make it so much harder for us to work. Because willpower is so good at getting us to do simple, small things. It is great for getting me to do something really difficult this afternoon. It is awesome for getting me out of the street when I'm about to be hit by a car. It is really, really, really bad at being able to get me to do something persistently over time. And so if we combine the fact that I am doing something hard, my willpower is not enough for me to do it, and I have this false story of the past that the past is exactly the same and I'm not transforming, it makes perfect sense that we are going to become stuck because it feels as if it is fruitless. And the reason why it feels like it's fruitless is because the way the subconscious mind learns, and it makes the new normal the normal. So when we understand this, this then can become a really useful thing. Again, I shared with you a tapping phrase that I used. And so I want you to tap along with me. Take a nice big deep breath. And if you are new to tapping, that is okay. Just move from point to point, follow along with me and just tap. I recognize the fact in this moment, I feel stuck. I feel like I've always been stuck. And no matter what I do, and no matter what I try, I am going to stay stuck because I am stuck. But the reality is I'm not actually stuck. I am constantly changing. I am constantly learning. I am constantly evolving. But because of the way my subconscious mind works, I don't remember that. I don't remember the change. I don't remember the healing. I don't remember the transformation. I give myself permission to remember and embrace. I am learning. I am evolving. I am healing. And sometimes I need to remind my subconscious mind of that fact. Nice big deep breath. And so whenever I'm feeling stuck, whenever I feel like I can't move forward, I do a little tapping just like that, because doing a little tapping just like that creates the space for me to recognize movement is possible and healing and transformation is possible. So I hope you enjoyed number 8 in our series on healing and transformational fundamentals. If you look on the screen right now, you'll see a little bitty playlist that you can click on and you can explore every single video in this series. We're adding new ones every single week. Ultimately, we're going to have 20 of them. For Tapping Q&A, it's Gene Monterastelli. Hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.